for joining us. We have you and Walt that's going to be walking into the there with the city of here. Do however way you.
And I'm not handsy that.
Behind us.
Oh,
No. Is with that growth, talking growth over a very short period of time, that with that growth comes issues such as traffic and also increased infrastructure demands. And what comes from our council and our leadership is to come up with a solution to solve these issues. We're not talking about future issues that will come from a transportation master plan. We're talking about issues that just trying to fix what we're dealing with today. And that's where, again, with the help of CIP and Walt will introduce here in a moment, comes down to our CIP and what can we fix immediately in the immediate interim future. Along with that comes transportation planning, which the city just hired its first transportation planner, as in Mr. Bridges up there. But he'll introduce himself later, I'm sure. But no, I will not introduce you right then. Anyway, that's where we're headed. That's just a brief snapshot of what we're dealing with here in Goodyear. And now when it comes to CIP, I'll let you speak a little bit on our CIP.
Thank you. I just think it's kind of funny. We've got our first transportation planner, and their last name is Bridges. I just think that's I mean, more better, yeah. Just a quick overview of our 23 CIP, FY23 CIP. We have approximately 82 projects that are not all engineering projects. We have some asset replacements, as well as some IT costs, some upgrades to computers, and purchasing of fleet vehicles, ambulance, and fire trucks, and so forth. But we do have 82 projects, $140 million for this year. Real quickly, we've got 26 facilities, technology, and equipment. As I said, that includes a lot of the fleet, IT upgrades, fire apparatuses. But a couple of the more important projects that you all might be interested in as engineers would be the Bullard Wash improvement. We've got renovations happening to Fire Station 182, going to include a battalion chief quarters, and then we've got renovations to our existing Fire Station 183 that'll include an ambulance section. Total for facilities, we're at about $26,700,000. So that's a pretty significant amount of our CIP budget. Parks, art, and ballpark. We have our phase 2 of this complex, which is to the west. We've got an additional 40 acres that will be developed. We have 9 projects in our parks, art, and ballpark projects. As I said, phase 2 will be one of the more significant projects. We've got $3.5 million in parks for CIP FY23. 29 street projects. As Hugh alluded to, we're addressing growing problems, growing issues, issues that are as a result of being the 9th fastest growing city in the country. So there's 29 of those projects, a couple of pretty significant projects. We've got Bullard Avenue, Celebrate Light Way to Roosevelt. We've got Indian School. We've got Citrus to Minnesota on Indian School. We've got McDowell Road, Litchfield to Dysart. Cerebral, we've got Yuma to Elwood. Several of our street projects, we will be using on-call engineering. We've got 9 on-calls right now with the city, but there are several of these ones I just mentioned will probably be going out to solicitations. We've got $54 million in street projects for just FY23. And then water, wastewater projects, we've got 7 projects there. Brine disposal is going to be one of the biggest ones. We've got some sewer line replacements. And there we have 3-4 million, almost 700,000 in CIP budget money. And then that was wastewater projects, now water projects. We've got 21 million in some change. Site 21 treatment improvement and increased capacity is one of the bigger projects there. So we'll be doing a lot of advertisement. Keep your eyes peeled. The budget right now, it's gone through our executive budget committee, so it's been vetted through. We're going through city council. We expect to have, there'll be some probably modifications in some of these projects in terms of their schedules, possibly their budgets, but we expect to see council approve early June, and then our FY23 cycle will start in July. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the introduction and a little summary of what's going on with the city. I wanted to go around to introduce, so everyone have a chance to introduce himself. Why don't we start with you?
Sure. Mario Soldemano, project manager and engineer, city.
Go ahead.
Keith Narowski, city engineer.
Davey Robinson, marketing and development, Yannick Fleming.
Hi, I'm Carmel, I'm Michael Baker, I'm Director of Transportation. I'm Ron Jail, with CBI, project manager.
Eric Neal with the PS Group.
Jessica Andreessen, Coelho Engineers.
Matthew Reed with the city of Goodyear. Kurt Slater with Fast.
Daniel I, CBI, resident engineer.
Lisa Melton, City of Goodyear, CIP project manager.
Bruce Kay, Nino and Moore.
Brian Wilcox with Intellis.
Amerigo Rodesky, ACEC, Arizona.
Barbara Chapel, Deputy Public Works Director, City of Goodyear.
Manager with Jacobs.
Kristen Taylor, Public Works Director, City of Fire.
Amy Bonner, City of Goodyear, CIP coordinator.
Chris Bridges, transportation planning manager, city of Goodyear. All of this is my 3rd week. The joys of starting a new job is all your contacts are gone. So if everybody could please give me your business. I don't have cards yet. I'm still waiting on them. But I got to build that back up again. But yes, you mentioned transportation planning is probably the single most important thing that we do at Goodyear, right? Neil?
Yes, yes, as of 3
As of 3 weeks ago. But we'll be putting forth a transportation master plan for the city. There's right now programmed in FY23 in CIP funds for that. So I'm already starting to work on some scoping issues and hopefully get that going this summer.
Danielle Inchorson, construction business development.
And we have 2 individuals who are joining us virtually. We have Carl Oberg and Rod Penniman.
Well, welcome.
Give them some.
I guess I'm the only one that wasn't able to get up early enough to come visit all you. Well, besides Rod.
Good morning, everybody. So Simi had asked me to put together a quick presentation, quickish, of our. Is there a remote or? Oh, it does. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. On the new surface water treatment facility for the city of Goodyear. That's what I'm here to do this morning. I'm going to go over a quick project background and scope and some of the drivers for the project. And then some of the modeling we did, and really the importance of preparing our system for a new water source. So background for the city of Goodyear, historically a groundwater system, never had surface water. That provides some challenges. We have water quality issues in the West Valley. And we're also limited to our physical availability through our state Department of Water Resources designation of assured water supply. We do have surface water rights. We have an M&I subcontract and a Gila River Indian Community lease. That is how we legally get our Colorado River water. But physically, it was, clear up by Lake Pleasant, traces across the northern part of the valley to the east side, and here we are in the Southwest Valley, right? Pretty far away. So we partnered with Salt River Project. There already exists an interconnect facility between the CAP and the SRP systems. And so we got a lease to take, so we could get capacity in that interconnect and a transportation agreement that would, so essentially they would wheel, we call it wheeling, water wheeling, our Colorado River water through the Salt River Project system to the Southwest Valley. This is a landmark agreement because we are the only city that is served by Salt River Project that is not on project lands. So they have a particular service area. We're the first one outside of the service area. It was a great partnership also because we're able to store water underground and have another agreement with them where we can lease their wells to recover it. So it's got some redundancy and reliability built into our surface water facility. This is the Salt River Project lands. I always think it looks like Marmaduke, the cartoon dog. Sorry. So anyway, the CAP interconnect is clear over on the east side. Their system obviously is already in place. We were able to leverage infrastructure that's in place. And then get the water to the closest we could get it was Avondale Boulevard at about Broadway. That's their southwesternmost part of their system. And from there, we had to build pipelines, an almost 6-mile raw water pipeline, also a pump station on their lateral. And then we had bought 30 acres of land just west of our water reclamation facility. And then we need a finished water line once the water is treated to tie into the existing distribution system, which remember was always groundwater in the past. So it'll be a whole new source. 8 million gallons per day was the size for the surface water treatment facility. So yeah, you can imagine, right? We had land acquisition, we had permitting, we were in multiple jurisdictions from Avondale County. We had a Corps of Engineer project to get across the Agua Fria. So pretty complex project, 3 years. Lightning fast, which I should add is why we chose design build as the delivery method and hired Jacobs Engineering as our contractor and engineer. So this was our computer generated facility. Once we got all our plans together, 100%, they have these great 3D models and stuff now. And so I always like to show this picture. This is the computer generated model. You can see kind of to the top over here. Is this a laser on here? No, I don't think so. Anyway, you can see the existing water reclamation facility. That's what's kind of to the top left. And then we have each of the process. So we have our first step, is chemical mixing, our sand ballast clarification, ozone. Then it goes through filters. Chlorine contact is half of the clear well. Residuals get sent off to another tank, and then we have our operations building. I always like to compare that with, this is the constructed facility. You see the same points. I couldn't get quite the same angle with our cameras we have out there, but you can see how very similar that plant wound up from the 3D models to what we actually built. So that was an interesting photo. So one of the most important things for us as a utility provider was during our modeling or during our design process, we modeled our distribution system. And we took estimated demands from 2025. We said, okay, based on IWMP, our integrated water master plan, what those demands would look like. And we prepared this graph, which shows that we will be base loading our system with surface water. That's the blue bar. And then we have a groundwater system still in place that will make up for those peaks. We did show in February, SRP usually does some maintenance, so we dry up, and that's the time that most cities will shut their plant down and do any maintenance and take care of stuff like that. So this was what we used for our demands. And some of the key things we found in doing this, which is really important why we did it, we had about 80 miles of pipe that were going to have reverse flow. So you can imagine what would happen inside those distribution pipes that over years have developed, some sediment, some biofilms, just standard operation. Pipes will get some coatings on the inside, and you start to reverse those flows, and you're going to have all that slough off. You're going to have a lot of water quality nightmares. So some other findings was we wanted to look at where that water would migrate through the system, kind of what percentage of surface water, groundwater mix we'd have in different areas, and how old water was going to get while it was out there. So age is important for water quality, because once you add a surface water supply that has more carbons than your groundwater, and you disinfect with chlorine, you get what we call disinfection byproducts, which is usually THM or PAS. So so we'll get into that a little bit more. So again, more on the water age, the south section in what we call Estrella Mountain Ranch, we call it EMR. And so we came up with this plan. We need to flush this system, right? We want to prepare the distribution system. And this is just an example of what happens inside pipes that have been in service for a really long time. And it's not a bad thing necessarily. I don't know if you guys have ever maybe a coffee pot, like if you have a Keurig, and you put clean water in it every day, and it still gets this weird kind of a film on it, and you're like, where did that come from? This is clean water, right? That's just a naturally occurring, almost like a biofouling and what happens in buildup on pipes. The challenge is, how do we get this out before we reverse flows and we enter this, we insert this new water source, so that this stuff doesn't wind up in our customers' taps? That was really important to us. So our goals, right, of the system was to reduce the scales that were formed on the pipes. And this was probably one of the most important things to me, right? Everybody's heard of Flint, Michigan, right? We don't want to be popular like Flint, Michigan, right? We don't want it to be in the news, but essentially that is what happened in Flint, Michigan. They changed the supply that was in their drinking water system. And that simple change in water characteristic, change in pressures, change in flow direction, those sorts of things will really impact water quality. So this is when my director would start telling the city manager, this is the scary part. Like building that plan, doing all the work, that wasn't any big deal. This was the scary part for us. So we did some testing on our to see what velocities we needed to flush at to get that stuff to remove. And you see, this is kind of a standard flushing operation, right? But we see a lot hydrant flushing, even through normal operation and maintenance of a distribution system, you'll see some flushing here and there, right? Make sure our chlorine residuals stay up. And so we had our partners, Jacobs, come up with this unidirectional flushing plan and how we were going to get through the system. And the city, I want to tell you, we chose to just do the entire, every main in the system. There were some areas that we had, a higher priority. These really need to be flushed. These you probably want to flush, and these you might not need to. But we said, no, no chances. We're not going to risk it. We'd rather just do that. So we estimated that was going to be about 8.5 million gallons of water we were just dumping out into the road over the series of, was it 8 or 9 months that we were doing this flushing program. And so one of the cool things we found, or Jacobs located for us, was this, we call it, it's the no-des truck. And so it was a truck, and there's a picture of it here. And essentially what it does is you hook up to 2 different hydrants, as shown in this little cartoon, and there's filter bags in the truck. And so you take the water, you can flush your system, but instead of throwing it on the ground, it runs through the filters on the truck and goes right back in your distribution system. And so you don't waste the water that you use to flush that out. So how effective, and so this is, sorry, put this together yesterday. So here's another image of how, kind of how the distribution system is. We isolate certain areas through the operations of valves and then hook the truck up to a couple of hydrants. It's kind of a cartoon image. Again, this is what the unidirectional flushing. Some areas had to be flushed this way because we didn't have a good loop. This is the truck and the way the truck and the operators of the truck. And here's the bag filters. This is what we prevented all of this from winding up in our residents' taps by doing this program. So we caught it all in these bags. Now, they all didn't look like this, right? Not all of them, they didn't all look this bad, but this was really, to me, it was a sign that it was really smart for us to do this flush program. Because had we not done this, when we turned that plant on, this would have wound up in people's taps. And it's crazy. We had 2 phone calls when we turned this plant on. The entire city, almost, well, not in the whole city, right? Our service area, which is the south, from I-10 south. We had 2 phone calls. One, when we responded to it, wound up being a water softener in their garage that wasn't maintained properly, and they were sucking brine in their house. And the second one, the husband was complaining and thought the water was, there was something funny, something off. And we didn't do a huge advertisement at first because we knew it would be in people's minds, right? But he had saw somewhere and we had turned on this thing. His wife told us he's crazy, don't listen to him. So those were the 2 calls we got for water quality. So it was amazing. We did have a huge outreach program for it. We had hired a third party, we had a website, we had a hotline. Again, every week we'd get a couple calls or emails. Hey, my garbage can didn't get picked up. Or, you know, someone, you know, was trying to get out of their driveway and maybe we had a hose in the way or something. But really, our city hall never even knew we were, you know, if we didn't tell them, they would have never known we did this program. It was done so low key. We tried to keep everything, you know, we don't want to alarm people. And I'm in public works, I do water and wastewater services. And so if no one knows I exist, we're doing a really good job, right? I mean, we don't want to be in the paper. We don't like to be noticed too much. So one of the other things we talked about was the disinfection byproducts and the water age. And so during the modeling, again, we found that the water would be the oldest in the southern part of the city, and that's in our Estrella Mountain community. It's a unique part of the system as we have true distribution or true transmission lines. They feed storage tanks and booster stations, and then everything is distributed from those 2 sites. So that made it easier. But when we did our bench testing, you can see the AB, that's our MCL for THMs. And the red line is how we would essentially grow THMs over time. And at the bottom here, you have, this is hours, right? So it has to get pretty old. You know, it's 2 days of storage before we really start to see them form. We don't typically like to let the water, but there's times of the year that water can get that old. So we saw that if we would just let them form over the time and then we could remove them, we would still be under the MCL. So the project also, we included some, these are called PAC systems. So we created a separate project, and in the time we were building the plant, we had to hurry rush, get this done. So it was, you know, in service before we turned the plant on, and we were able to successfully get this project completed as well. So it includes basically 3 components. You have your mixer, your aerator, and your vent to ventilate them. So these THMs are what we call volatile. So once we get them aerated, they will escape into the atmosphere. We can get rid of them that way. So this was another water quality concern of ours. And here's the 2 sites, 13 and 23. Site 13 has a 1.5 million gallon tank. We had to do some floor repairs anyway. We put it all in one project, knocked that one out. And then site 23 is a 5 million gallon concrete storage tank with a divider. So we can separate it into 2, 2.5. So you can take one out of service while you're working on the other. So, and this is the 2 sites that serve the entire Estrella Mountain community in the southern part of the city. And again, you know, no one even knew that we were doing this. I later took our council on a tour of this facility, and we have a council member who lives down there, and she was like, wait, what? We're getting this water already? And I'm like, yeah, you've been getting it since December. So yeah, so that was, to me, again, a good sign. We don't want anybody to know. So that was a quick presentation. I wasn't sure how much time I had this morning, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Yeah.
What pH are you finding?
I'm sorry?
What pH are you finding getting on your water?
So it, believe it or not, it was very similar to the groundwater we had. So we're 7.5 to 8.2 maybe. So yeah, we, before we developed the plan, you know, through all the modeling, we did the computer modeling, but we also did a lot of water quality analysis and compared things like corrosivity of the water that's in the system now, the pH that's in the system now, you know, all those things, and we compared them with what we bench tested through our treatment process, right? We had a small scale bench test, and we said, okay, how different are they? Which we were fortunate that they weren't too different, not like a, you know, big swing in their index or anything like that. Any other questions?
I guess, what's the timing for phase 2?
Have you seen the paper lately? I don't know if there's any water in Lake Mead to put through a phase 2. So we don't really have a plan for phase 2, but it's going to come out in the 5-year CIP, not fully funded, but in the second year out in 2027 is going to be a direct potable reuse pilot. So that's our next water source. Yeah.
I got just a small fun story. It's not a question.
Okay.
So
Sure.
during your flushing program, probably, I drained my hot tub, started filling it back up. It was all clear and everything. And I left.
All of a sudden.
Come back and my hot tub was completely brown. So I
Did you
called
call?
the city. I called the city. I go, man, the water's brown. Like, what's going on? This for flushing. Whatever. I drained the hot tub out a second time. What happened again? I picked just the perfect time to do that, right while you're flushing.
Perfect timing. It's impeccable. Anybody else have questions?
It's a question, because water, I don't do water, but I was curious, if you do this flush, how often do you do flush?
So we did this one time to prepare for the new source. And now we've been monitoring at different locations. And as we ramp up, so the facility, we started in 2 million gallon per day increments. So we're still working up to the full scale of 8. And so every time we up the flow, we move a sample port. We go to a different area of hydrants and we monitor, and we only flush as needed now. So we do have some areas in the east, or I mean, in the west side of the town where it kind of starts to dead end. Well, it's not quite developed yet. We're still adding homes. So the demand isn't as great there. And so we have some regular flushing to maintain chlorine residual in those areas. But for the most part, we don't do a lot of flushing on a regular basis. It's just not, we don't want to waste the water. Yeah, it's as needed. Yeah.
Is there any reverse flows in the pipes when you have to go 100% well in February?
So we will have some of those flows will go back and forth, which is why it was really important to get that stuff slept off now. Yeah, we're gonna see it going, depending on how much surface water. No, please do, because you'll flush that out for me. We don't have to do it. And I can charge you. I'm just. Sorry. Let's do my business. Sorry, we really like business stuff. Any other questions? Okay, so we left time for other people to talk about projects.
So before we end the meeting, I wanted to see if anyone has any announcements, any other cities have announcements. I want to get with the city of Litchfield to see if we could put you guys into our meeting.
Absolutely. Right. Actually, today there's a pre-submittal meeting for a design build for the parking garage that we're designing for our city center. So that's our biggest thing right now. Bruce will be there, so tag along. Yeah.
So what time is it?
Actually, so I took over for Woody Scout, and he's a special projects manager for that. So he's actually handling everything. He keeps that from me. He's talking about it. I'll find out.
All right. Any other announcement? Anyone have questions, concern? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Yes, sir.
I'm not too shy. City of Goodyear Engineering Department's looking for 2 senior project managers. So if anybody's looking, know anybody who's looking or want to make a shift to the dark side.
You just need to walk around with resumes these days. Shoot over.
And then, surprise, looking for city engineer.
And we have a plan for the coach to open as well. The opportunities, we're also in the next couple months, we coming out with an on-call, pretty wide range of on-call, so you can submit for all the different types, so we have office of it, but appraisers, architecture, general civil, construction management, cost estimating, electrical, environmental, landscape architecture, structural, survey, transportation, water, wastewater, plan review, inspections. So, yeah, so we're just gonna get a giant list, and we have a lot of opportunities coming up. We're going through our budget process right now, and we'll probably have quite a few projects coming out in the next couple of years, roadways, fire stations, schools.
When you said the on-call,
In the next couple of months, we're expecting, so we're working on it.
Can I make an association, a different association announcement?
yep, go for it.
Just a reminder for all you West Valley, it's the Society of American Military Engineers. Sammy has a scholarship golf tournament on May the 6th. And if any of you are interested in helping or participating in that, or sponsoring or doing something like that, you can go on the Phoenix Post, Society of American Military Engineers, or shoot me an email. I have a couple of cards left. So.
May what?
The what?
May what? What
May
day is it?
6th. 2 weeks from Friday.
Thank you. Anyone else? Maribel, does anyone?
We have roads and streets coming up, obviously. So trade show sales are open. So if you're interested in a trade show booth, those are open on the website. If you go to our website currently, and the general registration button will take you to last year's site. We don't have general registration open yet. It'll open May 2nd. But if you're interested in a trade show booth, that is open, or you can just reach out to me. And we do have sponsorships also. We haven't released that prospectus because we do reach out to those that had held the sponsorship in previous years to see if they want to continue with it. So I've got a few more stragglers that I'm waiting to hear from. But if you're interested in anything, just reach out. Always here to help.
So no one from the virtual wants to comment?
No, I don't have any questions from them. Usually Carl has something, but he doesn't have anything right now.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Have a good day.
Please make sure you take a breakfast with you. Take 2, they're small. We've got coffee, juice. Please enjoy. So they're all different.
Yeah. Yeah. People see each other, right?
It's so funny because,
Next week. All right, let's see your.
And whatever sweets are.
I'm never feeling it. You did a great job on tomorrow.
BT Dubs.
You know, if you've got people, take care of people there.
I leave without saying goodbye. I want you.
Okay.
Good to see you.
I've always lived in the West Valley, but not this far south.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, Keith, so I'm gonna be just. I don't
There you are.
know. I would like, if possible.
What has been happening?
Yes, because they've always been back when I covered this role. I've always had advice.
That's probably why.
Sorry, no. That was so rude of me. I was trying to be a wave goodbye. Keith, to know. Oh, yeah, I have one. Excellent. Thank you. A new one. Yeah, I did see the radio. It's pretty good. Just in case I get one. It's kind of thick. It's like throwing stars. Be careful. Sit on that sucker. I know. I go to like pick up a stack and I think it's like 6 and it's 2. Drive safe. Have a great day. All right, thank you. Yeah, so I would like to see.
I live like a mile away, so it's yeah, so she said there's only 2 people at home. Because my wife, nobody. So I went not that one. Fire hydrant. So I
And your hair, your white
my wife, she would jump in the pool. So, yeah, no, please reach out to me. Huh? You do? Where at? You live outside of the square? Is that, yeah.
Inside, next to Trinity.
Yeah.
So that's where I live. And it's your part, but.
No, you're, yeah, you're kind of almost like county slash out. Yeah. Yeah.
So get no discount.
Yeah, if you want.
Any discount anywhere.
Yeah, if you want to sign up for kids for sports, they make sure to pay the out of
No,
state
I
tuition.
don't, and
Same with me.
I just
Same with
never.
me. My kid plays football there.
I just.
$25 charge.
But it would be great. Wow.
Oh, yeah? You don't have much of a drive either. This is a good spot. My kids play baseball here. Football here. So,
You know, that's city center.
no, we're good here. Most of the stuff we do is, you know, Little League all the time. And actually, when I was with my car, I was like, over this road. And I built all the sat site, all those trackers.
And you were a resident? Yeah.
We've got a Kucha.
Plus, I mean, it's such a close area that I work with other.
For the contract.
Hey, I'll talk to you about some. How do I run?
Oh, Jamie, yeah.